Hello, it's Art with Alexander, and I have finally, long stories for some of these, gotten all of my art haul in. If I sound a little breathy or stuffy, it's because I am. The trees are just pollinating so hard. There had better be a lot of little tree babies out there when they're done. Anyway, yeah, some of these things have stories. Some of these have long backstories. I'll try not to be boring. Let's dive right in. First, I know that I have at least one friend who likes really tiny brushes. And I don't always use really tiny brushes, but when I do, I like to have good tiny brushes. These, believe it or not, I found at the GameStop. Yes, that's right, the GameStop down in Conway. They carry brushes for miniatures, including synthetics and sables. I happen to like sables, so I grabbed one of their sables, and after a little while here, I'll pull that out and we'll see how it performs. These, I was so happy to get, as they're upside down probably. There we go. These three, well, at least the one in the middle, I have desperately wanted for about a year because lamp black is the standard for most of your watercolor things because it's watercolor paint. And these big tubes are crazy expensive. However, dear old Michaels had some of these down to $10 for these 15mm tubes in Blue Apatite, Black Tourmaline Genuine, and Kenite Genuine, which, as far as I'm concerned, Kenite Genuine is an interference color. I might make a video about that later, but I might demonstrate what I like to do with this too. So this makes a really nice, what I think of as a neutral black. And being that it's tourmaline and not, say, burnt and ground up bones or coal or something like that, I consider this to be a cleaner color than some of those others. And being such a big tube, I will never need to buy another black, probably for the rest of my life. We'll play with those later. I do have a little setup so that we can see how those look. This is something that I really wanted this year. I wanted to get into gouache. What's gouache? Gouache, well, basically gouache is watercolor is transparent. Gouache is opaque, meaning that in a thick enough bit, I should not be able to see other lines or even other paints underneath. The theory is that I should be able to take white gouache, mix it with any of these colors, and put it on top of a stronger, darker version of any of those colors, and it should look just as good as if I was using acrylic paint. Well, why don't you just use acrylic paint, you wonder? Well, one of the nice things about gouache is being basically an opaque watercolor. If this stuff dries out, I just add water, and ooh, ready to go again. And because I wanted to do this properly, this is a small set of colors just to see which ones I'm planning to use most of, and it covers a pretty decent range. And because that's never satisfactory for me, I also got 3 extra colors that I'm pretty sure I probably will use a bunch. Now this is sepia. This is basically a dark brown, very much like the ones you find in the old tinny type pictures. Prussian blue, which I use lots of in my regular watercolor, and let's see, it actually is in this set already, but I love dark blue. I love to use dark blue, and if it's too dark for me, I can always add white because this is gouache. And then moss green, mostly because these are the greens they gave me. This is a yellow green, let's see, this is a emerald green, and this is permanent green deep, which is a little bit like a Christmas tree green. Notice none of these are the brown green, which I tend to use quite a bit of, so there they are. Maybe we'll check those out in a little bit. Like I said, I set up a little something so that I could check those out at least a little bit. Dump my trash. This. Oh, my beam paints. I really do love these. They have some very unique properties. For one, they're not used with the usual gum paint that the majority of your good paints are made with the exception of Cinnelier, which is using honey. I think these guys use honey as well, but instead of acacia gum, they use a tree sap from a local tree in Canada. Let's see, yep, that's empty. All right, so let's see, we have our thank you for supporting the Indigenous family, because this is an Indigenous Canadian family. Oh, and I have something that I probably had from last year, a use code for 10% off my next order. And they're really nice. They don't just sell paints. They actually sell palettes, some brushes. They have a limited number of papers from another local paper making place. It's really an interesting place. That's the Beam Paints, and I will try to remember to put a link at the bottom in case anyone wants to look at that. And this was my order paper, which I rolled up so that I could just quickly see all my colors, because I got Turtle Belly, Pumpkin, Spring Green, Salish Sea, Robin's Egg, which is technically a gouache, and Timberwolf. And I'm pretty sure they're all here. And my bonus, because they always send me a little bonus to go with it, is Cherry Magenta, which is wonderful, because I actually considered getting this as part of the 6-piece set that I wanted for this year. They have a deal in there that you get a little bit of a percentage off if you go in and order a palette set. It's a make-your-own palette set. You choose the colors, and they request that you have at least 4 colors. I chose 6, and these are the ones. These are the Turtle Belly, Pumpkin, Spring Green, because last year my little sample was Spring Green, and I loved it so much. Of course, these are handmade, so it may or may not be exactly the same as the Spring Green I got last year. I won't know until we get it wet and find out. Let's see, I'm betting this one is Salish. Yes, this is Salish. The Robin's Egg. Look at that. Isn't that one of the most beautiful pale blues? And it's not an easy color to find or mix. It's so delicate to get that balance. This, of course, looks black. But Timberwolf looked like it was a blue-gray. It probably will look like a Payne's blue-gray, is my guess. And they always send me a little sticker. Cute little sticker. We'll find some place to put that little sticker. In the meantime, we'll find some place to put this to the side. Yes, I bought another one. I had so much fun using up my questionable paints of either student or just unknown grade of paint. And when I say that, I mean I don't know what their archival quality would be. If I made this for somebody and they called me back in a month and says, hey, my picture is faded beyond all belief, I would be very sad. However, the reason things like that happen is because of light. And in a journal, light's not a problem. So we have another one of those telling me about this. I have a whole video on these beautiful little art books. It's not exactly a watercolor book because it doesn't behave anything like you'd expect it to, but I already have one like this, and I have had so much fun that I bought another one. Why not? Besides, I've still got plenty of that questionable paint left. So what's this, you say? Well, I have the egg plate for mixing colors, which is currently filled with mostly questionable paints. So I said for my gouache, even though they are both a kind of watercolor, I wanted to keep them separate. So I went to dear old Amazon, because Amazon has cheap stuff, and found me an acceptable plate. And why exactly do you think I wanted this plate, you ask? Well, I wanted a round plate. Don't ask me. I just decided the round would be the best shape for this. It's got a nice little mixing place here so I can mix colors up. Or I have these, and they're nice and deep. Depending on how the light's hitting, you might be able to tell these are probably at least maybe a ½ inch deep at the deepest point. Which means that, like my egg tray over there, I've got a nice deep spot for mixing things up in here. And I am very excited with this. I don't remember what the branding for this was. I'd have to look it up. But there probably will be a link at the bottom anyway, so if you're interested in one of those, I will find the link for it. This was a purchase of necessity, because over the year, they're not really part of my art haul, because I have been collecting Gelly pens, the Sakura brand Gelly pens, for probably a year now. And get rid of that. I was keeping them in some of my empty pencil tins because I had a number of different kinds of pencil tins. And I have outgrown my pencil tins. I don't have enough pencil tins for all of my pens now. But here we go. We've got these nice little elastic flaps. I've got several pages. I think that the paperwork on this, when I ordered it, said it would hold 220 pens. So I should be able to have all the pens I want. I might even put some of my pencils in here and cut down on the number of things I carry around places. It's had a lot of great reviews. There was one that used it a lot and said it lasted them about 4 years. Let's see if I can get to last 4 years. It's not quite as, well, I mean, it's okay. It's kind of more plasticky than I was hoping. I was hoping for something a little bit more canvas, but this is fine. This is cute. It'll hold my pens. It does its job. Then I will be happy. If I get 4 years out of it, I will also be happy knowing that that's how much somebody else got. So what is this, you say? What is this? Ooh, what is this? This is handmade watercolor made in India from a company called Wanderings. It's 100% cotton paper. It's supposed to be super rough. And anybody who says, oh, cotton paper, well, this wasn't the most expensive cotton paper by any stretch of the imagination. And people are going to say, oh, but it's not arches. I don't care about arches. I have arches. I have other papers, too, that I like just as much, if not a lot more, because they cost me a lot less, and they performed just as well. Ooh, look at this. We have a little cotton baggie to put it in. That's cute. I keep it nice and clean. I'll set a little piece of cardboard aside. I'm sure Mr. Binky will probably show up and steal it here in a little while. But actually, that's not bad. It's a nice little touch. I mean, it's not like something's going to cost them a lot. I remember prices in India, and a little cotton baggie with a little wooden bead probably only cost them a few rupees a piece to make. But it's a nice touch when it comes to packaging. And sometimes that makes all the difference for some people. Ooh, yeah, that is really, really rough. Ooh. Yes, I can feel this through this nice clean plastic bag. To avoid danger of suffocation, keep this plastic bag away from babies. You hear that, Binky? No plastic bag for you. Don't use in a crib, a bed, a carriage, or playpens. Well, obviously not. But you never know. This is the age where we have to be told how to not drink the battery acid in our batteries for our cars, as opposed to several decades ago when they were telling us how to adjust, what was it they were adjusting? Gearboxes? I don't know, but it was actually part of the instructions with your car. It was a complicated thing that nobody would ever dream of taking and doing themselves. They'd probably have a professional do it now. But then some people don't know how to change tires either. I know how to change a tire. I probably just don't have enough torque in myself to do that. So, I don't need to pull this whole thing out, but I do want, it's supposed to be thick. Oh, yes. Because the number they gave me for this sounded like an odd number. It wasn't 300, which is what you would, or, what is it? 500 GSM, I think, for a 300-pound paper. That'll make sense to the people who are into that kind of thing, but basically the super thick paper. It's about the same feel of cardstock when it comes to the thickness, maybe a little thicker than cardstock. Yeah, a little thicker than cardstock. But this one had an odd number. It was not the 500, and it wasn't the 200 a lot of people expect. I think it was something like 400, so it's not as heavy as 300-pound paper, which is 500 GSM. But it's not the standard 140 GSM or 140 pound, which I believe is 200 GSM. So it's somewhere in between. And wow, is this rough. I don't know whether this is showing up. Oh yeah, it is. I can see that. But look how rough this is. This is going to be so much fun. And And I've only got 20 pages to work with, so I'm going to have to think about this one. Yes, hello, Mr. Binky. So, for the moment, I'm going to keep this in this wonderful little baggie they provided to us. And it's re-sticking. It's got a nice re-stick seal there. And I think I'll also go ahead and put it back in this lovely bag they provided. Why not? I see a sticker on... Nope, okay. I thought it was... Oh, it's something in the bag. Something in the bag. Maybe it's got all that stuff that I was trying to remember. Ooh, it's kind of pretty. It's nice paper too. Maybe we'll use the other side as a tester, even though it's not the same paper. This is thinner. Yeah. So okay. So they're changing their things here. Amazon's got the wrong thing on it. Cold press. I knew that. You may not have. 100% cotton. Awesome. 15 sheets, not 20. Okay. 19 by 12. They had a number of sizes, so the number of pages probably changed with that. 500 GSM, and they're calling that 184 pounds, which is confusing because 500 GSM is not 184 pounds. I'm pretty sure that's 300 pounds. At least that's what this feels like. So, little difference there. Maybe they're not really sure how to weigh things. I'm not sure. But then I've never been really sure why it would call it 300-pound paper, because I've never gotten paper that was 300 pounds. It does not feel like 300 pounds. Maybe it's, oh, sorry. Trees are still pollinating. But maybe it's, what a whole finished package of it would be like, because, you know, they make these in giant rolls and stuff. Anyway, so you want to see some of my stuff. I want to show you some of my stuff, at least a little bit of it. And I'm running out of places to put some stuff, so let me get a little bit of water here. I'm going to have a little bit of a time mixing some of these watercolors. I'll have to use them straight out of tubes. That's okay. Fortunately, I keep a watering can nearby. So let's get a little bit of water. And I keep paper towels nearby, or at least I normally do. Where'd they go? Here's one. It's slightly used, but that's okay. We'll just use the other side. And we'll set that up there. And need a brush. Let's just use a small brush and get a little water. It looks like I'm going to get a little bit of sparkly in here because it looks like that may have been used for sparkly. Actually, you know what? I want a slightly bigger brush because one of the things I want to show are those tubes I got. And one of them is the interference color, which I think I'm going to do something on interference later, but just to show you what I wanted this for. Now, black tourmaline here is a dark, dark color. Beautiful dark color. Let's actually start with the apatite. And I'm just going to get some water on here. I'm going to go over to the smallest one here on the side. Mostly because even though I am ambidextrous, I do prefer to work this way. It's the way most people write. Unless you're my daughter, who, without supervision, would write the other way with the left hand. Let's see, we can see that, right? Just to make sure I'm in frame. Scooch up a little bit. There we go. Yeah, that's all wet. So these were on clearance. They've obviously been around a bit. I'm going to expect that they're a little on the dry side, which is fine. It does not bother watercolor. And I want this to be really dark. Yeah, look at that. Because this is the blue apatite. And blue apatite, as I described it to my husband, is kind of a blue-gray. A little bit of a green tint to it. But yeah, isn't that a gorgeous color? Absolutely gorgeous color. And I want to make that color really dark because I'm going to take that kenite and I'm going to show you one of the coolest things that I love to do with an interference color. Because the thing about interference colors, we're not going to go into the whole thing about them, but just brief explanation with the interference colors. They're the ones that typically people like to use on black. That's not exactly what I like to do with them. I have a different approach. I like to take a dark color like that apatite, an indigo, or this tourmaline, which I'm going to put on the bottom just for fun. Woohoo! Trying to come out of the tube. Can I get a suction back in here? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Suck that back up in there. I want some, but I don't want all that. Okay. Yeah, because tourmaline is a nice neutral black. It is a little bit warmer than, I don't know, probably lamp black would be warmer. But since I put this wet on wet, this will blend in a bit, and I will end up with a dark color in between. Looks like if I want this really black on bottom, I can put some more. And tourmaline is one of the granular colors, so it should grain up a bit. Okay. And to show you what I want with the kenite, I'll have to let that dry, because kenite is a very pale color. It's got a slight blue to it, but mostly it's all sparkle. Sparkle, 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 sparkle. We'll leave that be. I'm going to wipe my water off. Okay, what do we want to look at next? Do we want to look at a gouache, or do I want to look at the beans? For the beans, I've actually got my little sampler off to the side, and we'll just be adding their names to it. I probably should do that with the tubes, but I'll do that later because they are tubes. So let's do a gouache. What would I like to do with the gouache? Well, I have a big Prussian. I want to kind of demonstrate what I could do with that. Well, let's get the little Prussian out. We'll start with the little Prussian. Okay, no seal. I was expecting to have to pop a seal. I'm just going to get a little water on here, and I'm not wetting this. Not wetting this, because these are almost like poster paints. Ooh, look at that color. Oh, look at that color. Just look at that color. Hey, look at that color. Just look at that color. Wow, it works out. Sorry. But yeah, you can see that this actually is quite a transparent color, really. And just in case anyone's curious, no, I have not really worked with gouache, but I'm going to show you that you can use this with and along with your watercolors, because you see how I'm pulling this water down? It's getting thinner. It's getting fairly transparent, because Prussian blue isn't exactly the most opaque of the colors that you could get. I could have chosen something more opaque. In fact, I think I'm going to put just a little bit more there at the top. And now you're wondering, what are you doing? What are you making? I don't know. I'm making a demonstration. Look how dark that gets. Oh, yes. Because that's exactly what I want. I want to be able to get that dark color into a picture right away. Because I wanted this mostly for backgrounds for my watercolors, because I have some patience. At other times I'm like, look, I just want the darkest version of this color in this background possible, because I want to show off this bug, and I don't want to deal with an actual background. With this, I should be able to get that dark color with minimal effort. And I should be able to get it really quick. Yes, look at that. We'll let that dry. That is, of course, your disadvantage with just about everything. You have to let it dry. Ooh, it's making a beautiful blue color in the water, though. Anybody see that? Look at that color in that water. There ought to be something I can do with that. Maybe I'll dip some fabric in there. Oh, well. We'll see. Oops, do not put that in coffee. Almost put my brush in coffee. Yeah, that would be awful. I'd have creamer all over my brush. My brush is mostly dry, so it wouldn't really affect that much, but still, just ooh, look at the way this is drying. See, that's turning a lot more green. It's like they call it blue, but it really is a lot more green. At least once it dries. Speaking of, no, that is still quite wet. Quite wet. Well, we may end up doing that part later if it's going to take that long to dry. It must be a really wet day. Well, we'll set this in the back then. And I'm going to get this out. We'll see what we can do about some of these. This is my swatch book. Where is it? No, I left the swatch book up front. Oh dear. This is the wrong book. It'll take a long time to go back up there. So, let's just go ahead and go with this. Probably should use cleaner water because, well, that one's kind of blue, but that's going to interfere with some of the others. And I wanted to check it against my sample from last year, just to see if they really were the same or not. Because they look pretty close to the same. See, this one they call spring green, and this one says spring green, so they both say spring green. But anybody who has dealt with handmade items in the past will know that every time you get a new batch of something, Binky, really Binky? Sorry about him. But anytime you get a new batch of a handmade product, it's going to be slightly different. That's just the way it is. Just the way it rolls. Because you can never get a handmade item exactly the same every time. Even your commercial products, from batch to batch, if you ever deal with fabrics and you order 2 bolts of the same fabric, sometimes they are just slightly different from each other because even the dye fabrics, just sometimes they work differently. So let's see. If I wanted to do a rainbow version, sort of, I just want to test those two together to see if they're the same. So let's see, there's that. This is the turtle head, which should be a little brighter. Here is the orange pumpkin. Let's see, the wolf gray. That's green, and this is a light blue, and that's a gray. So, what would I like to do with these? That is a good question. How about I get a brush? Of course, I'm going to get a brush. And, yeah, I need fresh water. I was not planning on that. I should have something else I can put water in around here. Oh, wait, here's another one. Good. There's a reason I have more than one of these. That one's a little dusty. That'll be fine. I'm just demonstrating. I'm not making a painting. And water in. To the side. Water on. Let's see. Maybe start in the middle. And we'll start sort of a sunset type thing going on here. Now, one thing to remember about beam paints, being that they are something other than a gum Arabic, is that they do require just a little bit more re-wetting time sometimes. So I'm going to put a little drop on each of these. There we go. And it probably really won't take too long. Doesn't usually, at least. Let's start with pumpkin. Let's see some pumpkin action. Pump it up. Yes, I'm feeling corny. Sue me. Good luck with that. I don't got anything for you to sue me for. Hee hee. So yeah, look at that lovely yellow-orange color. That's pretty. Pretty, 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 pretty. I am breaking a rule, but don't worry, it's going to change in a little bit, because the rule of thirds says that, or halves, says never put a picture with only two parts right in the middle. Why is that, you say? Apparently it does something to the eye that nobody likes. I'd have to look up the actual wording. But I have to admit, if you put the picture starting here and then going up, it does look better. Now let's do this turtle head. Oh yeah, it's kind of a nice rusty red color. Reminds me of Indian paints. Not sure why, but it reminds me of that red you find in Indian paintings, probably because it's the exact same pigment that they use for that, given that this is a native made paint, as in made by natives. That's why they've got some of the names they do. This one doesn't, but some of these have names on them that I can't exactly claim pronunciation mastery of. They have too many vowels and not enough of anything else I expect. Okay, so up here, let's do this. Oh, this is a nice magenta. Nice magenta, yeah. Let's move this down into there a little bit. Let them work into each other. Yeah. All right. Now I'm going to go to the bottom, because I have these dangerous ideas. I'm going to put the water on the bottom. Almost to, but not quite all the way up there. Because when these dry, I want to try a little bit of the gouache stuff on it. Do a little bit of a gouache touch. Gotta test these all out with the gouache. Okay, now I want to take... Oh, this might not be a bad way to see how they differ or not. I put my dot of water on each of these so that we can play with them. Yes, even the gouache one, because I've got an idea. Okay, now let's get some of that spring green. And I'm going to put my original spring green off to the side. Look how beautiful and yellow that is. I mean, you saw that. That didn't look yellow at all. It's like this. This does not look yellow. This to me really did not look yellow, but wow, look at that color. That looks so yellow. So now I'm going to get the other spring green, and we'll see how their dye lots matched up. Little paint ones seem to take a little longer to reactivate than the samples do, but that's okay. Oh yeah, that looks pretty stinking close, really. Pretty stinking close. If there is a difference, it is a very, very slight difference. Not enough to get worked up over. Okay, now let's try the Salish Sea, which is a teal, a very tealish teal. Get some of that on here, and I want to drop it right down in here as if I had a lake or something. Ooh, look at that color. That's pretty. And look at the way it's interacting with the stuff around it, too. The way it's reaching up and spreading out. That's got good spread. This is a timber wolf. It's supposed to be a gray. And from the pictures, I thought it looked like a very blue-gray. So let's put it along here. And then down some. Let it interact with this teal down here a bit. Interesting. Crackle, crackle. Let's see, it's very wet up there. So, I think I will start with this robin's egg on the next one instead of right there. Because my plan is to use some gouache to change each of these into something a little more interesting. So let's get some of that robin's egg and see how it behaves. Yeah, I'm putting this on dry, and it is a very subtle color. At least it isn't white. It's probably not fully activated either, so... there we go. That's a little better. Can we see that color change on there? This would probably be a color that would be better out of a tube. It seems to have a high white content to it, which unfortunately makes it a little bit harder to activate. Something most whites have in common. So we'll do that, and we'll do something else down here on bottom. But yeah, that's not a bad color at all. Okay, how are you doing? Getting any better? Oh yeah, look at the granulation from that tourmaline. That's pretty. Pretty, 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 pretty. So, this time I'm going to rinse that in the blue cup because I'm already in blue. And my dirty water is getting quite dirty. But I'm only demonstrating. It's a demonstration. Dry that off a bit. Okay. Now hopefully I'm not going to lift those colors too much. But I want to show you what I wanted that kenite for, what it does. In fact, maybe I'll do it on the bottom half of the robin's egg just so you can see how it behaves by itself. Because it looks like a pretty dark color when you look at that, doesn't it? I mean, it looks like you would think, oh wow, that's going to be a dark, dark color. And it does have a bit of darkness to it. But once you start spreading it out, all that darkness disappears and it just kind of turns gray, doesn't it? Get a little more water on there because it's gotten a little drier on top already. Or it may have something to do with that white. And you can't see it right now because it's wet. But when this dries, this is just going to sparkle like mad. I'm going to get some and I'm going to put it on top of that Mayan blue over here. And you see it makes the whole thing a lot darker. Kind of pulls the colors together a little bit, but it's also adding quite the sparkle, which you can't see when it's wet. You honestly cannot see sparkle in kenite when it is still wet. I remember the first time I used the sample card for this, and I thought, oh man, this is kind of disappointing. This isn't an exciting color. This is really subtle, so maybe I could use it for shadows. And then when it dried, because I already had a sample card for it set up, and I had sampled it by itself in my usual monochromes. But then when it dried, I was just blown away by how sparkly it was. The color didn't really excite me much. But the sparkle effect, ooh, like stardust. Granted, I do have sparklier paints these days. In fact, Beam makes one that I've actually got over here called, oh, it's got one of those names, Essence Shell. And it looks silver. But it's actually a lot more iridescent than that. It's not silver. When you put it on the page, there's really not much in the way of color at all. It's not exactly white, but it does sparkle like mad. So let's see, how are these doing? They're working on it. That I obviously just did. This, I can see water pooled in the corners. It's going to be a while, and then I'll see what I've gotten. It's an interesting collection, though, huh? I mean, when I made it, I was kind of thinking about maybe like you'd find a lake in the middle of a deciduous, or not deciduous, but a pine forest or a juniper forest, some sort of dark needled forest. And those were the colors I was after, the lake colors, maybe the dark sky, probably some trees and things. I don't know. I was kind of thinking along those lines when I chose those colors. That's going to take a while. Can I see the sparkle yet? Can't really, and if I do, I'm going to move that around a lot. And my samplers are someplace else. So you're just going to have to take my word, unfortunately, that Kenite is pretty sparkly. And I have one left here. What would I like to do with that? What colors have we got here? We've got those. I've got that green. I've got that sepia. Ooh, I want to see the sepia. I think I want to see the sepia. So, interesting that when I buy watercolors, there's oftentimes a little film on the top of these. But not so with these Holbein gouaches. That is a little interesting. Anyway, get some of this brown on here. Oh, yeah. Now that is brown. That is brown. It does. It kind of reminds me of those old tintypes and the old photographs, because they weren't black and white, they were brown, which I always found interesting. I don't know a terrible lot about the old photography process. I know there was magnesium in the flash, that's why it was so bright, and that it took a long time to do stuff. You had to expose it in a dark room, and there were various chemicals you had to soak it in. There was a lot of work in the old photographs, not like today's digitals where we just snap the photo, take it to the nearest computer, and print it out. I remember being a kid, and anybody that has not done this is going to say, oh, what? Back in the day when you had a limited number of photographs that you could take on a stuff called film. And you would take the film cartridge when you'd gotten your 20 pictures or so, and you would take it to 1 Hour Photos or Walmart or stuff like that. And before that, you had to send it off if you weren't doing it yourself. And they would take it and send it off. And in a couple of weeks, maybe, you'd get it back. And half of them would be completely awful. They'd be all blurry. Your thumb would have been over the camera case. Something, and you would only get maybe 1 or 2 out of 20 pictures, and you had to pay for them all. Yeah, that's right. Pay for them all, regardless of whether or not you liked them. How awful. Now you just check your phone or your camera if you're using a camera, and you're like, nah, I don't like that one. Delete you, scrap you. Nope, I don't like you. I can Photoshop you and make you look better. Oh, man, what I wouldn't have given for that kind of instant gratification as a kid. So, this one's a little drier. What would I like to do with it? Something on there, perhaps? Because I want to show you this. I haven't used it either. But this is a beautiful little short liner. Usually, liners are much longer. Here's an example. Let's see how much longer the bristles are. Here's another example. But yeah, these are liners. But you'll see how much shorter this one is. Especially compared to this one. It's almost twice the length over there. So what did I get that for? I've got other liners. Why did you get that? I got that because sometimes those longer liners are a little harder to sign my name with. That's right. I got it just so I could sign my name on my artwork with a little more precision. So maybe that's what I should do. Maybe I should write something somewhere. I mean, this, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. It's still wet. How about I just reach in, get a white. Get a white. Oop. Yep, and I've got a bunch of paint sticking up again. I have noticed that sometimes if I'm careful and I squeeze towards the bottom, it'll suck some of that back up. Anyway, I'm going to just kind of dip this in because I'm just going to You know what? Let's do some little stiff, but it's also short, so I suppose. Dot 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 dot. It's snowing, everybody! Ah, it's snowing in. What is this? March? No, no, we don't want it. This is the South. We don't want your snow. But it's snowing on this page, so there. Ha ha ha. There. But yeah, you see how much that covers up? If I did that with a regular watercolor, you'd still be able to see that. Clean off my little brush. So yeah, that's what I got this year, and that's what I got it for, and that's why I got it. Maybe at some point we'll do this. I still have those other little ones on the side, and maybe we'll just have a little painting day, a little embellishment day, because we'll take all of these things that I've done stuff to, and maybe we'll pull out that gouache and add some more stuff to it, and actually put some pictures on here instead of just some crazy graduations. Yeah. Anyway, I hope you've had fun watching this. I had fun showing it off. And this is Alexander Arts signing off.